everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Creature Teachers. With me is Rick Roth from Creature Teachers of Littleton, Mass. My name is Talia, and today's episode is going to be all about herbivores.
And we think of herbivores as animals that eat plants, and it's true. We don't think of a bird as being a classic herbivore. I mean, we do have carnivorous birds as well, but a lot of birds do eat things like seeds and leaves and such, and this happens to be one of them. This is Zima, and Zima is an umbrella cockatoo. And you would find her in the wild in Indonesia. That part of the world is where we see most of the cockatoos. We're going to see them in anywhere from Indonesia down into Australia. There's quite a few species of them down in Australia. She is a fairly common bird where she comes from, and she doesn't have a ton of color. She does have some yellow under her wings here, and she does have some yellow. You going to do this for me? You ready? Here we go. Boink. Under her tail, right there. So she does have some yellow on her, but primarily she is a white bird. She's got some beautiful blue eyes as well.
Yeah, her eyelids are just this beautiful powder blue.
And she is not a bird that was captured in the wild. She was born in captivity. Most of the time when we see birds that are born in captivity, they have a band on their leg.
Right,
and
with a serial number.
Yes, and what it does is it has some information on it. It tells where and when they were born. Yes, exactly. And it's called a closed band, which means that it's like a wedding ring where it doesn't, it's not crimped onto their leg. It's actually a band that they put on their leg when they're quite young, and their leg grows, and then you can't take the band off of it, which is good because it means that they haven't been caught in the wild. Zima doesn't have one because she was, we think that she was a backyard bred bird, somebody who just locally bred her. She's got kind of a sad story behind her. She was found in a house with 40 other birds, and the people had just left her there. And you can see she is an amazing bird. She just loves people, and she's been like this from the very, very beginning. We did rehome the other birds, but we did keep her because she's just fantastic, and she loves everyone. So I'm going to let you hang on to her for a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about her. Primarily, these are seed-eating birds, so they're going to get the seeds and stuff off of trees and eat them. They will eat leaves as well, but primarily it's going to be seeds. So I think you'd probably consider them more of a seed eater than a
pollinator.
True, yeah, and they're quite important where they come from too because they do disperse seeds. So she's going to wind up eating a lot of the seeds, but many of them are going to move either through her or she's just going to take them somewhere else and drop them. And so by doing so, they're able to move the forest around quite a bit. Now, you might have noticed a feather just fell off of her. She's in a molt right now, which means she's losing old feathers and getting new feathers in. And one of the things that we find with this species in particular is they tend to be very, very dusty. They have a dander on them, which is kind of like a raincoat for them. It protects them. But when you pet them, you'll notice that you get this powder on your fingers. We have another one named Elliot, and Elliot is a lot more dusty. When you touch Elliot, it's like petting a chalkboard. He is covered with this powder. And that's one of the reasons we have him. He came from a woman who was asthmatic, and she just couldn't handle him anymore. I know it. The dust was bothering her too much. Now, birds like this can live a long time, 50 to 80 years. And so, again, we were talking when we did the carnivore program, we were talking about animals and how you really want to make sure you know what you're doing when you decide on an animal for a pet. Many, many people have birds as pets, and people will ask me if I wanted a bird as a pet, just as if I don't really care whether it talks. She does talk. She says a few things, but she's not a super good talker. But she's about the most affectionate bird I've ever seen in my life, and so I would recommend one of these. However, when I'm doing programs, I often have people will come up to me and say, "Oh, don't be surprised if she's missing when you leave." And my response is always, "Yeah, I'd give you about a week before you begged me to take her back again." She is lovely, but she can be very noisy. They can be quite destructive. They chew things up. They have to, that beak of theirs is used for chewing. And again, you have them for a long, long time. And the other thing to take into consideration with her, and you can see right now, they're extremely intelligent. Last time we had the kookaburra, which was not so smart. With her, she's very, very intelligent. These birds are second only to the things like the crows and the magpies as far as intelligence goes. And because of that, they require an awful lot of attention. So she's loving this right now, but she could do this all day long. We call her our Velcro bird because she sticks to you and you can't get rid of her. But they are wonderful birds. You would see them in large groups in the wild. They have a tendency to pair up and then stay in these flocks. Yeah, and they're quite monogamous throughout their entire life. Sometimes you'll see them just in the pairs, and sometimes you'll see them in flocks of hundreds and hundreds, depending on where they are. They tend to be a nuisance animal because farmers are, of course, raising crops that are grains and things. And if these guys get in there, it's like crows in a cornfield. They can really be a problem. So depending on where they come from, they can be a real nuisance. I don't know if you can really see what she's doing right now, but she's panting. And a lot of times when she gets on people like this, she starts to pant, and they think that there's something wrong with her. This just means that she really likes you a lot.
Good.
So, she's a very, very affectionate bird. You'll also notice the feet on her. She's got feet. Many birds have this. Yes, they have 2 toes that go forward and 2 toes that go backwards. And that really allows them to kind of grab onto something. That's called a zygodactylic foot. And it means that she can hold onto something. So very much like you would hold an apple and take a bite out of it, she can hold a piece of fruit and take a bite out of it as well. So they will eat a lot of fruits. They will eat a lot of seeds. She's also got a bare eye here, and the blue skin around her eye is very, very impressive too. So she's a bit smaller than our male, which they have a tendency to be like that. But it's difficult to tell male from female just by looking at them. If you look very closely at the eye on these, you might notice that a female has a little brighter kind of brownish red around the iris than the males do. Males have a tendency to have a much darker eye. And she's loving this, isn't she? She's a very, very affectionate bird. Yeah. All right, but guess what, Seema? We're going to have to put you back. The other thing about her is, and I'm hoping that she'll be good. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to have to take her and put her in the other room because if she's not the center of attention, she can, come on. Oh, now she likes you. She doesn't want to come to me again. Yeah. Oh, you're going to show off now? Yeah. Yeah. This is another strange behavior that these birds have. They have a tendency to really like to show off. And you may ask why the crest goes up on them. That's just an indication that they know what's going on around them. They do this for a number of reasons. Hi. Hi, yeah, how you doing? You're going to come down? Okay. Yep.
Now love's from you.
Now it's my turn, right? Okay. Let's see if we can get her back in here. This is more of a classic herbivore.
These come in several different colors, yes?
They do. The wild species has a tendency to look very similar to this, a gray, much more gray to them. But this happens to be because the areas that they live in have gray stone in them. So
that makes sense.
I'm going to pass him to you. There you go. And we're going to see if we can find out what he is. Now, if you look at him, you can see he's got a beautiful face and very, extremely fluffy fur. He's called a chinchilla.
So soft.
And chinchillas come from the Andes Mountains where it's very, very cold. And if we look, we can see that this fur is extremely dense and long hair. This allows them to really maintain their temperature. And we have 2 different types of chinchilla. There are long-tail and short-tail chinchillas. This is a short-tail chinchilla.
It's very wiry.
And the hair on the tail is quite
totally
wiry.
Different.
Yes, and I think the reason for that is because they're dragging it behind them, and if it had this type of fur, it would wind up just falling out, I'm sure.
Oh, wow.
Now, there's a few things about them that are intriguing, and one, you were talking about the toenails before. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, most rodents will have the little claws. Not retractable claws, just the little things for digging and grabbing and such, and foraging, but the chinchilla does not have claws like that. They just have little fingers.
And one of the reasons for that is because of their habitat. They are bouncing around from rock to rock, and they can grab on a little bit easier if they don't have those claws. The pads of their feet do a really good job of hanging on that way. They come from quite dry climates, and the dry climate is really kind of good for them. They don't require a lot of water. They get most of the moisture that they eat that they need from what they eat, and they're eating grasses and seeds and things. And it's amazing to me at how little food they require. You would think that an animal that needs to maintain a high body temperature is going to have to eat an awful lot to get enough energy to do so. But we have several of these. This is our newest one, and he's about 4 months old. He does like to nibble on
nibble
things,
your-
yes. He's about 4 months old, so he will get larger than this. But we have an older chinchilla, and he very seldom eats. We'll feed him a bowl of food once a week, and by the end of the week, he still isn't through half of it. So he really doesn't eat an awful lot. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he's inside, so he doesn't have to maintain a body temperature in very, very cold conditions. But in extreme conditions, we see a lot of animals that have similar features to this. One of the things we notice with him is that he does not have hair on his ears.
No,
And
they're very big.
Yes, big ears with little hair on them. But you might also notice that there are veins going through those ears. So any animal that comes from an extreme condition, and this is an extreme condition, these mountain areas, or deserts, for instance, are also extreme conditions. They're going to have big ears like that. We notice that a desert fox has big ears.
Yes.
Jackrabbits have big ears. The reason for this is that the blood, if it gets too hot during the day, the blood can flow through the ears, and because there's no hair on the ears, it's going to wind up cooling off the animal. So
Like an elephant.
elephants do this as well, and they flap their ears even to do so. So that's one of the reasons they do that. These are nocturnal animals. These are out during the day a lot with us because we handle them a bit, but in the wild they would be a lot more nocturnal.
They're so soft.
And we can tell if we notice his face here. You'll notice his little whiskers going a mile a minute
they are
there.
going crazy.
Yeah, and he's always checking things out. He's got some strange behaviors that I haven't noticed with chinchillas as much. I know chinchillas are climbers, but he likes to climb up on your shoulder, and he'll stay there too. One of the other really weird features about chinchillas is that they really need to maintain that coat. That coat has to stay nice and fluffy soft, and you can see
my
when you did
goodness.
that just how
See
fluffy
if I can get
that
a shot
is.
of it.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see this or not, but this fur is amazing. And this really, there you go. Yeah.
We can't really tell.
Yeah, if you blow on it, you can see that it moves that around a little bit. And the reason that it's so soft is because there are about 60 hairs per hair follicle on this. It's a really, really thin hair, and if he were to lose some of his hair, it would simply just float around in the air. So he needs to maintain this wonderful coat, but he doesn't do this by taking a bath. He can't take a bath because he can't get wet. He might die if he gets wet, for a number of reasons, mostly because the water could get down to his skin and it creates fungus problems, and he can't get rid of
Fur
that.
is too thick. It's not made to have water roll off of it.
Absolutely not. Yeah. So what does he do?
He would have to keep himself dry, make sure that his fur is dry.
Right. And so to take a bath, he's going to roll around in dust. Now where he comes from, there's a lot of this very, very fine volcanic ash. And it works quite well if you're going to take a dust bath. You roll around in it, it gets down into your coat, it spreads the hairs out, it also will absorb any oils or anything that might be around them, and so he needs to take a dust bath. And I don't know, he's very new to us, so we don't know whether he's going to cooperate and do this or not, but we brought with us today a little bowl with some dust in it. We're going to see if maybe he wants to take a dust bath. You want to go in there and take a dust bath? There you go. All right. Now, oh
There
yes,
he
there we
goes.
go. Yep. Yeah, roll around there. There we go. Oop. There you go. Okay.
Magical.
Yep. So now he gets this dust all down in his coat.
He looks so happy when
Yes,
he
he
sits up.
does. And we find this with all of our chinchillas. They really love to take dust baths. And when we take them to do a program, if we let all the kids hold him or pet him, he says, "Oh, now I'm terrible. Everybody's
I'm so
touched me. I need
dirty."
to go home and take a bath." And he goes right home and he'll roll around in this dust. This is one of the reasons why this is an animal that's been in captivity for quite some time. And they do quite well as pets. They're quite smart for rodents. They make very good pets, but again, you got to give them a dust bath every day. So I know that lots of times people don't want them because they don't want to give them this dust bath on a daily basis.
Why wouldn't you want to do that every day?
Well, this is why right here.
Oh.
You'll notice that dust coming off of him.
magic
So he
pixie
can
dust.
be quite dusty. But they have these dust baths now which are very contained, so they're not as messy as they used to be. This one is only about 4 months old. We have several that are years old. And one of the big problems with them is that they do live so long. They can live for 25 years. And so we've got several of them that people gave to us because, well, I had one woman call me up and say, I bought this for my daughter when she was 6 years old.
Oh, goodness.
She's going to college now, and we need to find a home for her chinchilla. That was an interesting one because when we went to pick it up, I asked its name, and she said she didn't know because it was her daughter's, so we had to rename it. So we went to a school and we asked the kids if they wanted to name this chinchilla, and we got some wonderful suggestions: furry, fluffy, softy, all the things you would expect. Then one little boy said, why don't you call him Charmin, because he's squeezably soft. And so he became Charmin. And
adorable.
yeah, and so we haven't even gotten a name for this one yet. This is a gray chinchilla. You were talking about them coming in a number of different colors.
Yeah, they can come in a violet, not really purple.
No, but it's very close. It's very interesting.
Close.
It
It's
looks
almost
kind of
like a
like this gray,
lavender
but it's
type.
got a bluish to it. It's very, very pretty.
Yes.
Yep. And I've seen them white, and I've seen them black, and I've
black.
seen kind of a pinto. But these are all colors that have been bred in captivity.
Okay.
Lots of times when we see animals become very popular as pets or for some other reason, these became popular because of the fur trade. Fortunately,
they're
they
very
don't do that
soft.
with them that much anymore. They're much more common as pets. But we do see a lot of different colors in them now. But the normal color that you would find in the wild would be this color right here. They're not doing well in the wild.
Oh, no.
And it's not because they've been hunted. It is because of global climate change.
Oh.
We're seeing a lot of these types of animals that live up in the Andes or in any mountainous area
Peru,
that need to
Guatemala.
come down into valleys and go up into other valleys so that they're not isolated. Well, they can't do that now because these valley areas are so warm during the summer months that they're not moving around, and so populations are becoming isolated, and that becomes a real problem when you're dealing with these animals. So there's probably more in captivity than in the wild these days, so which is a bit unfortunate, but they are interesting creatures.
Now, what's their closest relative?
I'm not really sure. They're a rodent. Lots of times people look at them and say they're very rabbit-like, but
Guinea
rabbits
pig.
are actually lagomorphs, so they're not as closely related to. This would probably be more closely related to something like a rat or a mouse or a squirrel than they would to a rabbit. Hi, what are you doing? All right. Okay. All right. Let's see if we can get him back in his little container here. And okay.
Oh, goodness. It's Morla the
Now
ancient
we're
one.
talking. Okay.
Wow, look at you.
This is Flash.
Flash.
Yeah.
Great name.
Flash is a sulcata tortoise, or an African spur-thighed tortoise. And of course, tortoises are notorious for being herbivores. When you run as fast as Flash does, you're not going to be able to catch things. So it's better that you just eat grasses and leaves and stuff. And really what's interesting is lots of times we think of these tortoises as needing a very varied diet. They need a lot of fruits and things. This is not true with sulcata tortoises. As a matter of fact, what happens with them, we got this turtle as a rescue, and he had slight, what they call pyramiding in the shell here. We'll see this. This should be much more
So his carapace
flat
should be-
and rounded rather than this pyramiding. And this is caused by almost too much fruits and things like that in their diet. They are much better off eating just grasses and things. And during the summertime, he is our lawnmower. Of course, it takes me all summer to mow my lawn because I've got this guy working for me, but we'll put him out in an area and just let him sit there and graze, and he will just do that all day long. He'll sit in the blazing sun and just sit there and graze.
That's right, they're
So
from
with
the
these,
hottest part of
they
Africa.
love the heat. These guys are notorious for just sitting out in the heat. But if it gets too hot, they're great diggers. If we see the front feet on him, we'll notice that those are wonderful for digging holes. And they would spend some of their day underground in these holes. And tortoises are important in a lot of habitats because lots of animals will share their holes. And they have seen that many animals kind of form a truce when they go underground. You'll see rattlesnakes with mice in the same hole
meerkats or-
because they just are saying, okay, I give up. We're going to be down here and hang out for a while. I'll chase you when we go upstairs. So that's basically what they're going to do. And the tortoises come down there and they'll just hang out with them as well. He is not full grown.
He's not.
Yeah, he could get to be quite large. He can get to be about 200 pounds.
Wow. What is he at now?
He's probably maybe 50 or so. Yep. He's heavy enough where I don't take him everywhere with me. We just take him a few places. But you'll see why they call them spur-thighed tortoises. We will see
really
spurs and stuff here. We see spurs on the back of them as well. This is a good protection for them. But if we look at the front feet here, we'll see that these make wonderful protection.
Right.
He will go back into his shell like all tortoises do. But watch what happens here, if we can get him to do this. If he puts his head in, watch where his feet go. Look at that.
Oh, his head's
now he has his feet completely covering his head. And there's no way anything is going to get in past these feet. So that is how he is going to protect himself. Okay, you going to come back out again? There we go. You see why we call him Flash. Yeah, he's quite slow. They can live quite some time. We can see them for up to 150 years. And again, like many other reptiles, they grow throughout their life. So he could be quite large when he is full grown. And they are fairly common throughout sub-Sahara Africa. And again, just eating those things. Not built for aquatic habitats at all.
No.
These are primarily, scrub areas, and yes, and they would not do well. And I imagine they might float, but they're certainly not going to get anywhere because they don't have fins. We see that the feet are designed to be digging rather than swimming. So he's more inclined to be doing that. Very stumpy back feet here, though.
Yeah, they're like elephant feet.
Yes, I think they're probably just there for support.
Yeah.
To kind of drag them along with. But that's about it for these guys.
Can he actually lift himself off?
He can lift himself up a bit, but not very high. There are some tortoises that will fight with each other, and they would use these spurs to try and push each other over. If they wind up pushing themselves over, then they can't get back up again. So that's one of the things when tortoises fight, that's what they're going to do, is try and move each other over.
Yeah, there's that common misconception that turtles can't breathe when you turn them over.
They can. When you get an animal that's this heavy, it's very possible that he can't. I'm not sure about that, but it would stand to reason that it would be difficult for them to do so, depending on how they are set up. Because, if you see, say, whales and stuff that come out on the shore, it's very hard for them to be able to breathe simply because of their own body weight.
Is just crushing
it's not suspended in the water, so it does crush them. And I would think that might have something. There might be something to that. I'm not really sure, but we've had this guy for about 3 or 4 years now, and he was a rescue from somebody who had him, and he spent a lot of years outside. But of course, if you put up a fence, they can dig right underneath it. And so we do have a fence for him, but what we've had to do is to take the corners, and we have taken fencing and gone underground and put the soil over it. So if he does dig, he's going to hit that.
Fence
So
a few feet underground.
That's the only thing that's kept him in. He's gotten out on a number of occasions. He was out for about 3 days one time, and I got a phone call from a neighbor who said, "Are you that weird guy that has all the animals on the top of the hill?" And I said, "That would be me." And he said, "We have a big tortoise down here." And I said, "Well, it just so happens I'm missing a big tortoise." So we got him back. Thankfully got him back, but he doesn't travel too far. I will say this, though. Even though he's moving this slowly, when you're not paying attention to him, it's amazing how fast he can disappear. Because we take him to fairs and stuff, and generally what we'll do is just put him down. And I'll get to talking to somebody, and the next thing you know, off he goes. And the way we find him is to look for the crowd, because there's usually a number of people hanging around him. I've often thought there must be a way to be able to put a bicycle flag or something on him.
Yeah, that would work with a belt.
Yeah, okay. All right.
What a cool creature. Okay, so this animal we've probably seen at a farm or petting zoo. Seems to eat everything. I'm not quite sure it's just an herbivore.
Yeah, he does have a tendency to eat just about anything.
Man-eater.
This is an African pygmy goat, and we have 2 of these. And ironically, we got them as companions for our wallaby. And so we got them home, and we kept them away from the wallaby for the first little while just to get them used to things. And he had a tendency, because they eat everything, he was eating a lot of grain and apparently it causes problems with them.
Really?
Yes, they wind up with urinary tract blockages, which is what happened to him.
Oh, no.
So he spent some time at Tufts, and $4,500 later, he was fixed. But now we only give them hay. And great. Everything poops. Unfortunately, it has to poop right here, but we'll clean that up in a minute. Anyway, so we got him all better again.
He's ready now.
Now, unfortunately, we have to keep him away from the wallaby because the wallaby eats grain. So we have 2 of these. Now, they are herbivores, and true herbivores. These guys don't eat anything but, well, they will eat dungarees as well.
And shoelaces.
Yeah, and shoelaces and everything.
And
of course,
fences.
we always think that goats are going to eat things like tin cans and stuff. The only reason that they would eat tin cans is they like the taste of the paste that they used to use on the back of the tin can. So that's why we see goats eating those tin cans. Now, he's not going to get a whole lot bigger than this. He is a fairly small animal. He is a wether, which means that he was a buck, but he was been neutered. And because of that, he has a tendency to be a bit more aggressive than our female does. And they will butt heads. And of course, you know, we were getting him to do this before. Let's see if we can get him to do this. Boom, okay. So he does do this. And this is just normal for a goat like this. Now, these are herbivores, but a lot of times the cellulose in plant material is very difficult for them to digest. And so these are what's known as ruminants. And ruminants are animals that have more than one stomach, or actually more than one compartment in their stomach. Cows have 4. Goats have 2 of these compartments. And what it does is they will wind up chewing the hay that they eat or the grasses that they eat. And when they do, they swallow that and it goes into their first compartment of their stomach. And when it does that, it forms this ball. And all of the things, oh, you're not going to pee, are you? No, okay. All of the things that we have in the stomach, well, we should have put down the cloth first. Okay.
Been in the crate for a while.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, what happens with their stomach is this ball of the material that they're eating goes into the first compartment, and because of the bacteria in their stomach, it starts to ferment. And then they regurgitate it, and when it comes up as what's known as a cud. We're all familiar with things chewing their cud. That's what he will do. So he will chew this cud, and when he gets done chewing the cud, he swallows it again, and it continues to ferment in his stomach until it is absorbed.
That sounds awful.
It does sound terrible, but it is one of the ways that they are able to eat as much of this cellulose as they possible. Cellulose is one of those things that's very difficult for even herbivores to digest, so they have to have a special way to do that, and that's how they wind up doing that. Now, he does come from sub-Saharan Africa, where there isn't a whole lot for them to eat, and so they eat just these things like the grain, I mean not the grains, but the greens and the hays and grasses that they have in that area. I think they're quite cute. They do have a lot of personality to them. Our other one has a little bit more color to him. I like the coat that this guy has on him. You'll see how dense it is, and that's because he's an outside goat. So he needs to be able to survive in the cold climates. All right, where are you going?
This is exactly why you don't really want a goat as an indoor pet.
No, they are not good indoor pets. They can't be housebroken, unfortunately. And he's been in a carrier, and so of course, coming out of his carrier, he wanted to. Oh, he's really frisky today. Again, they're fairly territorial in the wild, so you know these are domestic animals, but they do maintain a lot of that behavior that they would have in the wild. And he tends to like to butt heads quite a bit. Even though he's been weathered. If he were a buck or an unweathered goat, he would be a lot more aggressive. And he would also have a smell to him. Buck goats do have quite a heavy scent to them, but
he has a beautiful little face.
And he does have a very cute face, yes. You got to do your thing. There we go. Yes. All right. Oh, he
Never
really
gets old.
He is loving this. You'll see these in herds. Of course, many times they will keep them in herds. They're one of the smaller of the species of goats. We see a lot of different types of goats, from Nubians that have the ears that go down to, you know, many
Right,
of
those,
the
like, big ones.
of the other ones. Normally, he would have horns too. He would have developed his horns, but you see how aggressive he can be. You put horns in the mix, and it becomes quite a problem. So,
fun and games
and
until
he's
someone loses
he
an
does
eye.
this. Another interesting thing that we see about them, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this with him, but he only has bottom teeth in the front. And that's because of the way they wind up eating. They will reach down, grab the food, and lift their head, and when they do, they cut off the grasses, so they don't have any top teeth, which is one of the reasons we don't really mind too much when he's chewing on us, because it doesn't really hurt. I think he's more inclined to hurt you if he were to come up behind you and do this. So as far as biting goes, they do have those weird teeth. But there are a number of different types of ruminants, goats, and of course cows. We were talking about cows having 4 stomachs. Even some of the things like wallabies can have more than one place in their stomach, and they will chew a cud. Lots of times when we see these guys relaxing, they will wind up going and eating something, and then they'll go and lie down somewhere, and then later on they'll regurgitate this cud, and you'll see them chewing this cud. Yes, and so, you know, it sounds really disgusting, but it's the only way that they can truly wind up digesting their food. So all right. And we always save the best for last, as you can see, but that is what we have to deal with when we're dealing with animals at all. So I got to thank you one more time.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for enjoying this episode of Creature Teachers. I want to thank Rick Roth again for bringing all of his creatures. And again, he is from Creature Teachers in Littleton. And we will see you next time.
And thank you guys all.